This evening on your MTN 430 News, a Wyoming star athlete now in the fight of his life.
I was thinking we're just going there for a simple concussion, and it was no simple concussion.
It just really hurts your heart.
After suffering a traumatic brain injury on the football field, we hear how loved ones are rallying around Kyler Mine's recovery. And a powerful discovery found in an unlikely place.
Never in my wildest imagination did I ever think we would actually have it hanging in the museum with his other paintings.
How this Billings masterpiece went from museum to a Martinsdale home. And topping the list, we take you to the Beartooth Highway, where a new top 10 list says this is the best place to see fall foliage in Montana from way up here. Your MTN News starts right now. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Andrea Lutz. We start this evening back on Broadwater Avenue, where a man seen toting a gun about a month ago is back home and free from a federal hold, but not free from federal charges related to carrying a gun across from Broadwater Elementary School. Well, Metcalf's presence on his property and the adjacent public sidewalk prompted Broadwater school officials to place students in an enclosed parking lot for recess at the start of the school year. And it also sent a wave of worry over parents. But a federal judge says Gabriel Metcalf has no criminal record and was in jail for much longer than his penalty should really carry. So he's been released pending prosecution of a misdemeanor offense.
I'm relieved. My heart's been racing all morning long. I'm trying to keep that under control. So it was never about the school. It was only about keeping us safe and the threats that have been made against us.
Going forward, Metcalf won't be seen carrying his gun next to Broadwater Elementary as a term of his release. And his attorney said in court documents he was protecting himself from an ongoing feud with a neighbor and cleared a psych evaluation. Well, I guess it's not too early for snow here in Montana. A handful of ski resorts across the state, they took to social media to say, yes, they have snow already. Well, take a look at this. That's Great Divide, Showdown, and even on Whitefish Mountain Resort, all reporting snow fallen on their slopes. Well, this dusting may not stick around for any real accumulation. It is a true sign of how just unpredictable Montana's weather can be. It was just a couple of days ago that we saw 80 degrees in Billings. For the latest on the weather, we'll send it over to Ed McIntosh.
Gray sky all day long with the Stockman Bank weather cam, an indication of the cooler and wetter weather that's already continuing to move in. And we'll see rain heavy at times in portions of the region, at least through Saturday morning into the eastern plains, perhaps into Saturday afternoon, or even some sprinkles Sunday morning. Cooler temperatures overall. Temperatures will be below seasonal averages through the early part of the weekend, but by the time we start getting into the early part of next week, could even be a little above average. We'll sort it all out in a few minutes with a forecast.
This afternoon, the latest on a Sheridan High School football player fighting for his life in a medically induced coma. But before Kyler Mine's battle with a traumatic brain injury, he scored a touchdown and played an entire football game last Friday on the field. As our Scott Breen reports, Kyler is far from alone in his fight.
This is 16-year-old Kyler Mines in a position he's been confined to for the last couple weeks. An induced coma and intubated after suffering a life-threatening brain injury during a recent JV football game.
He got a touchdown. He played the whole entire game. It wasn't until after the game that he started feeling poorly.
That's Kyler's grandma Mary, who says the sophomore was taken to the Sheridan Hospital by ambulance shortly after when fear jolted his family.
Tried to get him to calm down and did a CT scan and found a brain bleed. He started to crash and they had to intubate him and get him medicine off to Denver.
Just like that, the 16-year-old whose goal in life was to play for the Denver Broncos was fighting for his life at the Denver Children's Hospital, where he remains. Well, Kyler's injury happened right here on this field on a Tuesday afternoon. And despite watching game film over and over, coaches, teammates, and even athletic trainers found it hard to pinpoint exactly when it happened.
He doesn't ever go down and ask for trainers' help. He doesn't ever share that his head's really hurting until after the game.
Sophomore teammate River Osborne was on the field with Kyler and wasn't sure what to think.
I did notice him on the sideline. He was like kind of just down on a knee like I am right now. He just had his head down and he was like resting, and I asked him if everything was okay. I didn't really know if he like shook his head up and down or if he like didn't do anything at all, but that's just kind of how he is, so I didn't think much of it.
Kyler played both linebacker and running back in that game against Cody. Once coaches and teammates realized the severity of his head injury, they devised different signs of solidarity, starting with the sophomores.
And Keegan Rager texted our group chat, would you guys want to all get buzz cuts for Kyler? And we were all pretty much right on board with it.
Kyler's hair is one of his main things that it's like football to him. Don't touch his hair. And now that it's shaved, everybody knows that when he wakes up, he's going to be extremely sad about his hair.
The Sheridan seniors enterprised other thoughts.
We got stickers on the back of our helmets now that Kyler mine's 35, so we kind of came up with that idea, but the sophomores shaving their head, that was pretty good.
And they didn't stop there. Some of the guys decided to lend a hand or a mower at Grandma Mary's while she's in Denver with Kyler.
So me and Breck Reed, we both got our little push lawn mowers and just cut up her grass for her. She didn't ask us to or anything.
Those gestures are within the team. Coach Mowry says folks from all over Wyoming are also reaching out.
There's only 500,000 people in the state, and it's kind of a small town with long roads.
Help also appears to be on the way from one of Wyoming's star NFL players.
On the 30th of this month, we're going to have a fundraiser for him. We'll have Logan Wilson, who's a linebacker for the Bengals from Casper, Wyoming. He'll be sending in some signed gear to auction off.
Sheridan coaches and teammates say Kyler is one of the hardest working Broncs, and it's already showing in the hospital. His mom tells MTN Kyler was released from the ventilator yesterday, and while still unconscious, is already showing signs of progress. He's following simple commands like squeezing hands, pointing toes, and he even yawned. Stunningly, though, as Kyler battles in this very room, it sparks tragic memories for his mother, who lost a 7-month infant boy just steps away in this same hospital.
They claim sudden infant death. He was at daycare, and I seen him 30 minutes before he had stopped breathing. And he's literally right down the hall from Kyler, so it's really emotional, and I just need to take Kyler home.
It just really hurts your heart.
Coach Mowry was actually able to visit Kyler and his family in person, driving to Denver and then meeting the team for a game in Laramie.
Yeah, it was a tough couple hours. Thank goodness Grandma was there, because I wouldn't have been able to hold it together, and I didn't lose it till the drive to Laramie.
The Broncs won that game and are now chasing a 3rd straight state title. But the true number they have in mind is 35. In Sheridan, Scott Breen, MTN Sports.
The message from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky after meeting with House and Senate lawmakers on Capitol Hill. Thanks for the support so far, but Ukraine will need more support to win the war.
We're very happy that senators, the Congress, White House, are really United States. Of course, first of all, people of America really support us. We supported from the first days of full-scale war, and now together with us, and we spoke about everything, about support, about the situation on the battlefield, about our plans. I can't share with media all the details, but I think we had very strong dialogue with senators.
Additional funding for Ukraine is at a crossroads here in Congress. A number of Republican representatives and senators have said they will vote against any funding package that keeps the government open if it includes additional aid for Ukraine. At this point, Senate Majority Leader Schumer and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell say that they're both in favor of sending additional aid. That could set up a major battle with the House of Representatives and its Republican majority.
It's very clear that if we were to have a government shutdown or pass a CR without Ukrainian aid, the damage that would occur on Ukraine's campaign would be devastating. To quote President Zelensky in the room, and this is a quote, he said, "If we don't get the aid, we will lose the war."
Ukrainian President Zelensky's appearance in Congress created a split screen on Capitol Hill, with a number of Republicans led by Senator J.D. Vance and Representative Chip Roy saying that they would, quote, oppose the additional expenditure for the war in Ukraine included in the White House's request. 6 Republican senators and 23 Republican representatives signed on to that letter released Thursday morning. The future of additional aid for Ukraine largely rests in the hands of House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who has a tough decision to make, whether to go along with the 23 Republicans who've said that they do not want to support additional aid to Ukraine, or whether to reach out to Democrats for help in passing a spending package for 2024 and preventing a government shutdown. At this point, Speaker McCarthy is at a crossroads.
It's frustrating in the sense that I don't understand why anybody votes against bringing the idea and having the debate. And then you got all the amendments if you don't like the bill. This is a whole new concept of individuals that just want to burn the whole place down. It doesn't work. Look, I know it's an obstacle, but I find it as a challenge, and we're going to solve it.
Nathaniel Reed, Scripps News, Capitol Hill.
A Bronx daycare owner and her cousin-in-law are facing charges surrounding the death of a 1-year-old boy investigators say was exposed to fentanyl at the facility. Detectives allege that the daycare was being used as a drug den. The owners are currently in federal custody. Investigators searched the daycare specifically looking for traps, false walls, and things typically found in drug stash houses. Last week, that 1-year-old died after being exposed to fentanyl, and several other children were hospitalized. Officials found a kilo of fentanyl stored at the top of playmats used by the children. Billings is home to many artists, but this evening we're bringing you a Montana-centric history lesson told through the brushstrokes of a famous local painter. Our Alina Howder has the story.
Out and About is sponsored by Blue Creek Storage at Shorey.
Here in Montana, sometimes the coolest discoveries are found in the most unlikely of places. This is a great example. The Charles Bear Family Museum in tiny Martinsdale is now home to this painting by Joseph Henry Sharp, which was recently the center of a whole lot of controversy in Billings.
From the Alberta Bear Theatre in Billings to the Charles M. Bear Family Museum here in Martinsdale, the Bear family holds a special place in Montana history.
Charlie Bear came out from Ohio in 1883. He wanted to seek his fortune in the West.
And that he did. Although not in a traditional way, Charlie Bear made his fortune through sheep herding and investing, his wife Mary by his side.
They had their first of 2 daughters in Helena. That was Marguerite. And a few years later, they had their daughter Alberta in Billings.
This ranch in Martinsdale eventually became the family's headquarters.
This is the office.
And if you take a tour, you'll see what the family's life looked like a century ago. From the dining room.
We know they entertained because they owned several sets of dishes.
To the dressing room.
Kind of copper-covered silk chiffon. It was really Marguerite who spearheaded all the interior design, and she was very interested in art.
Speaking of art, you'll also find a lot of that here, including a new addition to the collection. This 1905 Joseph Henry Sharp painting that until just recently was stored at the Yellowstone Art Museum in Billings.
The newest painting we've acquired actually joined 3 other Joseph Henry Sharps that were all in the same exhibit in Billings in 1906.
Charles Bear actually used to own the painting. He donated it to the Billings Chamber of Commerce back in 1915. The Bear Family Trust just purchased it back for $350,000 at an auction.
I knew the story. I've known it for years, but never in my wildest imagination did I ever think we would actually have it hanging in the museum with his other paintings.
A piece of art now back home.
It was meant to come back together, as Alberta said she and Marguerite wanted it to do.
At a museum worth your time, well off the beaten path. In Martinsdale, Alina Howder, MTN News.
Still to come on the MTN 430 News, looking to buy a home, you might want to hear about the latest mortgage rates before you start shopping. How high are those rates going to go? We'll take a look at that coming up next. And what if schools could predict depression in students? It might help our nation's mental health crisis. We explain ahead.